Hello, parents, guardians and future pupils of Solihull Senior School. My name is Mr. Gledhill and I am the head of the lower school, comprising our Year 7, 8 and 9, or more familiar to us as thirds, shells and fourths. Sadly, for the purposes of this presentation, I am not talking to you in person in our fabulous Bushel Hall with a large presentation screen behind me, with the ability to meet you all in person, both before and after the event. Before you press pause or fast forward on this video, I wanted to explain a little about the purpose of the presentation. I shall outline the lower school life in a little more detail, with a specific eye, of course, on the third form in particular. This presentation applies to both parents and pupils alike, with just a few elements for parents in particular. So let's begin. Some facts and figures for digestion about the new cohort of 2021. We are delighted that as it stands we have 156 sets of parents and pupils now about to become members of Solihull Senior School community. I'd like to offer all of you, and especially the pupils of course, a really warm welcome to the Solihull Senior School and the community that you are now already an important part of. It is wonderful to see such a breadth of different experiences coming into the senior school, with currently 39 different feeder schools from across the Solihull, West Midlands and indeed Warwickshire area, but indeed also further afield too. Whether you are coming as a one from your school or as part of a group from your existing primary or prep setting, please do know that a key message to take away from the senior school is absolutely that all pupils join the senior school at Solihull as equals. It is a new beginning for you all. So you are joining the lower school. What does this mean? Well, here's a slide about the wider school structure. And we have different sections within the senior school, as you can see on screen. We are very proud to uphold over 460 years of tradition, and our nomenclature can be perhaps somewhat confusing to those that are new here. And as you can see, the lower school comprises what we term the third form, the shell form, and indeed the fourth form, before moving in to the middle school and the lower fifth and upper fifth, and then indeed, of course, sixth form. The lower school years are a really crucial period in any child's life. It represents, of course, the transition from primary to secondary education, and of course, significant developmental changes in both a young person's physiological and physical being. Lower school years are key in terms of building independence, resilience, and learning to self-organise. The third form then is the start of it all. Initially, of course, what we would like is for all our new pupils to settle in as quickly as possible and getting off to a really positive start. Managing that transition from primary can be challenging, but it is recognised as a key hurdle in terms of a child's development, which ultimately helps pupils to develop coping strategies, independence and emotional intelligence too. We aim and work towards pupils settling in at Solihull as seamlessly as possible, to be happy and content so that they can become as productive as possible as young learners. We also recognise, of course, that children are, of course, individuals and that they all have their own specific needs. The pastoral system at school here is keen to ensure that your son or daughter does settle in here quickly, whatever his or her needs, and does make the most of the wonderful opportunities that they will have on offer. So what does our pastoral, the teacher support system, what does that system look like? Well, as you can see on screen here, the form tutor is the absolute centre of all pupils' world, pastorally especially. Potentially a big change from a junior school situation. The tutor and the head of year, who will be Miss Campbell, who has gone through 2 sets of cycles from 3rd to upper 6 as a tutor, will stay with the pupil as they move through the school and get to know them and be able to support them in not only the coming weeks ahead, but the months and indeed years. The form tutor is therefore the first point of contact and can be contacted when particular issues arise. We are delighted to have now deputy heads of section for the lower school. Mrs. Brown is a name that many of you will know, given her role in transition. And indeed, we have Mr. Brown, who has a specific eye on welfare matters, as well as the development of pupils through our Novus curriculum. Whilst they might be Mr. and Mrs. Brown, I can promise you there is no relation or confusion to be had there. We stick with the lower school section, which means that at the end of the 4th form, your son and daughter will move into the middle school, the 2 core GCSE years, as they continue their journey. But as you can see on screen, the pastoral structure is more enhanced and has more nuances, with the assistant head welfare, Mr. Emmett, to our fantastic nursing staff, from trained peer mentors, benchers, house captains, head of well-being, Mrs. Rooney, to our dedicated and bespoke school counselling service offered by an external third party, Safeline. So, moving forward to the forms for next year, which will be revealed to all pupils per the team's invitations for the week commencing the 28th of June. There will be 7 forms into the new 3rd form, and we look forward to meeting you all, remotely of course, in the coming days ahead. As we can see here, that's me, Mr. Gledhill, as head of the lower school. This is Mrs. Brown, who I've just spoken about, Mr. Brown, and then Miss Campbell as the head of year. We then turn to the tutors, and we have Mr. Eden, who will be heading up 3 Ansel, who is a physics teacher day to day. We then have 3 Bushel with Dr. Routledge, who is an English specialist and indeed second in department within the English department. We then have Miss Zhu, who is a business and economics teacher, working with 3 Cooper. We then have Mrs. Stafford, who is head of department for drama and performing arts, heading up 3 Lee. We then have Mrs. Massarella, head of food at Solihull, heading up 3 Malvern. Then we have Mrs. Parker, another head of department indeed, heading up 3 Tomlin, head of biology. And then a new member of staff to Solihull for September 2021, Mr. Tat, who will be heading up 3 Wilson and is a mathematics teacher. So that is there an overview of the 3rd form team, and just to help put some pictures into your minds ahead of more remote meetings to come. We also operate a thriving house system with all areas of school life. As you can see on screen, within each form there will be a mixture of the 5 houses: Featherstone, Yago, Pole, Shenstone, Windsor. As you can see here with this fictitious example, the pupils are in one form together, but the houses span across the year group and indeed across the school, where there are a range of activities, from house drama, especially in the 3rd form, to sporting fixtures, sports days, quizzes, the famous mile run. So here is that example. Mixing the houses between form groups allows pupils to engage with others from across the year group, in their own house, and indeed across the wider lower school and senior school in general, where house captains in the 6th form take on responsibility for organising and delivering events as part of our pupil leadership programme. The Butterfield Cup each year is hotly contested between the 5 houses to see which house has accumulated the most points across the whole year throughout the school. A fiercely contested trophy, I can assure you all, and as a former Solihull pupil myself, and indeed therefore a proud Featherstonian, I can promise I won't hold it against you in any other different houses. As we can see here, this is just an example. It's a fabulous shot of pupils during sports day wearing some of the colours and face paint that their houses represent. Now, moving forward to a matter we hold very dear to our hearts. We feel it vital that pupils be aware that they are part of a thriving community within school and indeed their wider Silhillian community. That community will do all it can to support one another, and in return, we ask that pupils uphold responsibility for the school, that their behaviour has an impact on the school and its wider community. To reflect this, Mr. Henry Hitchens, headmaster from 1947 to 1963, introduced what we think is a very simple, sensible, and common sense approach called the rule, which stands to this day, namely that members of the school shall in all circumstances conduct themselves in a proper and sensible manner. So, high standards of behaviour are expected in school and indeed away from school, when he or she is involved in any activity organised by the school and whenever identifiable as a member of the school. On that note, I would like to take a moment to talk to you about the school aims and indeed motto. These personal qualities are again important to us, where these words embody that actions do indeed speak louder than words. Ambition. This is about extending yourself in that race of one and fulfilling untapped potential. Be ambitious in all that you do here at Solihull, whether in the classroom or out in any number of the variety of clubs and societies we run. Take risks in your learning to develop not only your understanding, but indeed yourself. And try a new club or society come September that you haven't done before. Learn that failure is arguably the greatest teacher for us all in all areas and helps us to develop empathy, kindness and compassion. This is examined in more detail in our Wellbeing and Personal Development curriculum, as well as our Novus curriculum, which are a fixture in all pupils' timetables. Opportunity, part of the Solihull DNA, if you will. We have many clubs and societies across all areas of co-curricular life at Solihull. Make the most of those wonderful opportunities. Be humble and indeed grateful for those around you, at home and at school, for the opportunities you have been afforded, and indeed afford those opportunities to those around you also. And community. We are one large family at Solihull, consisting of thousands of people, and you are very welcome to it. Do your best to contribute to that community as positively as you can, in whatever way you can, from saying hello, holding open doors for others. We celebrate kindness, inclusivity, positive behaviours and contributions. The moral compass is strong here at Solihull, and we will equip you to make positive contributions to your own communities as young adults and into the wider world one day. And finally, perseverantia, persevere. For all of us, there may be challenging times ahead both in and out of the classroom. After all, if it's too easy, then how are you going to reach your true potential without challenge? But bearing this key idea in mind of persevering through difficulties will stand you in good stead both now and in the future as an old Silhillian. This links into our new and exciting Novus curriculum regarding overall pupil personal development and overseen by the tutor in small group sessions from September, tailored around 4 key traits. Flexible, to be able to adapt knowledge and make synoptic links between discrete areas of learning. Front-footed, having that confidence to take risks and learn from failure as we grow. Grounded, developing and nurturing that core emotional intelligence as pupils move through adolescence and puberty into adulthood. And giving, engendering a sense of philanthropy and altruism as pupils discover and explore the wider world around them. For September 2021 as well, for the first time, pupils into the third form will be taking project-based learning as one of their lessons. More to follow on that in due course in September. We aim for all pupils to embody these values in their lessons, but also crucially in their co-curricular contributions through one or more of our big 6 of co-curricular life here at Solihull. This might be in debating or science club, for example, via academic enrichment, taking part in lower school productions or house drama, attending a clarinet ensemble or singing in chapel choir, for example, trying your best in our Terriers programme in the 3rd form, through to Snowdonia School in the Shells, then indeed perhaps taking part in Duke of Edinburgh scheme, the Bronze Award when in the 4th form, and beyond. Attending a hockey club and representing the school in netball, rounders, rugby, golf, tennis, the list goes on and on. The list of clubs and societies with the times they run is published termly and will be available via the platform SOCS, which all pupils and parents will have access to via the parent portal, for example. Trying to strike a balance between those activities is key, and we will help guide pupils so they're not overburdened whilst also encouraging everyone to partake. And indeed, last but not least, community relations. We have a wealth of charitable endeavours that we run within the lower school and indeed within the wider senior school and 3 to 18 continuum, headed up by Miss Dignan, who is a history teacher. Moving forward to the structure of a typical school day, together with curriculum and some housekeeping matters. Pupils will of course receive this at various points, including the induction day in September and those early days and weeks of the Christmas term moving forward. So, registration takes place in form rooms with form tutors at 8:40 promptly each day, where pupils are indeed registered and encouraged to arrive just before this time so that registration can take place efficiently and that notices can be given. Then from that 8:45 window till 9:05, pupils have a diet of chapel, lower school assemblies together with a wider senior school assembly. Indeed, in normal times, twice per week, form tutors stay with pupils to check in with them as a group and individually, and where we will run various initiatives throughout the year. For example, at this moment of recording, we are celebrating Pride Week, both within a wider senior school assembly, remotely, and indeed in tutor time. And this is a time as well where tutors can ensure that effective organisation is taking place, especially in the 3rd form. Lessons then commence at 9:05 for lessons 1 to 3, each lesson lasting for 40 minutes, and where some double periods may happen in subjects such as art, games, and Terriers, our outdoor education programme, about which I shall speak shortly. There's then a mid-morning break at 11:05 where pupils can buy snacks and drinks at the snack bar in the refectory, catch up with friends, repack their bags for the next lessons, and so on. Lesson 4 then starting at 11:30. Pupils enjoy a longer lunchtime at Solihull to not only eat their lunch in the refectory, but also importantly to partake in the many clubs and societies which we have on offer either on a year group basis or that might be across a section, for example. For example, we've had game of drones before, a drone activity run by members of staff, through to hockey practice, music rehearsals, drama rehearsals, etc. Afternoon registration then takes place at 2:05 and then period 6 at 2:10. Academic lessons then finish at 4:10, with pupils then catching a bus home, for example, waiting for collection in the library, for example, or indeed again taking part in one of the various clubs we have on offer. So, turning to a typical timetable of a 3rd form pupil. For example, here we can see the school day laid out with the break and lunch, as explained a moment ago. And then we've got English highlighted, for example, here, moving through to maths lessons. It is important at this point to mention that we run a week A and week B timetable. So, for example, there might be 9 lessons of maths across a 2-week period. 1 week might be 4 lessons in week A and 5 lessons in week B. And obviously that might change from form to form, but the same amount of time will happen for everyone. Then we have, for example, science lessons. We can see a double period here. Wellbeing, personal development. Art, DT as double lessons. History, geography, humanities. RS, music. Latin. Spanish we've seen as well, and ICT. And then, last but not least, Terriers, our outdoor education programme, running always seems to be on a Thursday periods 4 and 5 each year. It's important to say as well that we work with all of the third form tutor groups, teaching-wise, from a teaching and learning perspective, as one group. We find that really helps embed those bonds, and of course we cater very much for differentiation at all academic levels, such that staff can make the most of that time with their relevant group in the thirds. So moving forward to Terriers. Well, why is it called this, first of all? People often ask me. I can still say I'm not entirely sure why it's named what seemingly sounds like after a breed of dog, but there we go. I'm still looking to get the answer from the school archivist, Mr. Loynton. Essentially, Terriers are outdoor education programme for third form pupils on curriculum timetable. This is their first step, hopefully, to some taking gold D of E one day when in the sixth form, but generally fostering a development of a range of skills as pupils mature into young adults and a love of the outdoors. As mentioned, this takes place across a double period where pupils come to school on that Thursday in their Terrier's uniform, consisting of the customary red fleece, as we can see here, blue outdoor trousers, walking boots, and the school polo shirt. During these lessons, pupils work on rotation in smaller groups of about 10 across the academic year, covering a range of different outdoor skills, such as fire safety, climbing, knowledge of knots to develop self-resilience, personal development, and indeed independence, in addition to fostering a love of that great outdoors, whilst enjoying themselves at the same time. This then leads to the week-long Timetable Snowdonia school trip in various groups across the shell form, and then Duke of Edinburgh award scheme in the fourth form and beyond. So on to some general housekeeping matters. Well, first of all, organisation. Completing homework and prep, as we call it, on time and to an adequate standard is usually part of a bigger picture of organisation, where pupils are moving especially from a primary setting to this secondary setting. Understandably, some pupils might take a little time to adjust to the senior school, given the work, greater number of teachers, different number of subjects, different number of teachers, and indeed the logistics in normal times of moving from class to class. Again, this may be quite different from a previous junior school or prep primary setting where pupils were taught predominantly by one teacher in one classroom for the majority of the day. In the senior school, for good reason, pupils move in normal times to different departments per subject dotted around campus. As well, you can see within the planner here, we have the school aims written out as much as other items for pupil awareness. So preventing problems is obviously much better than having to deal with any fallout, which is what we work hard on in those first days and weeks. And we also support a collaborative and supportive home-school partnership to succeed pastorally and academically. The student planner therefore comes into play, an important tool helping organisation even in the age of increased communication electronically, of course. As we can see on screen, the planner can help in a number of ways in terms of staff list, who they might want to speak to, We have sections as well relating to if something is concerning you, anti-bullying charter, and so much more. Prep can be recorded here as well as it will be done remotely via the platform Teams, and can be used, of course, as well in terms of writing a quick note to a relevant tutor or indeed a relevant teacher. For example, and a classic one would be a notice about inability to partake in PE because of a particular medical reason on that day, for example. So it's another good line of communication between home and school too. And getting into good habits with bag packing and doing prep on time is incredibly important, of course, to build pupil resilience. The size and number of bags that some third form pupils carry around school never fails to amaze us and is absolutely wonderful to see. Hockey kit, cricket kit, guitar, a model of a gigantic red blood cell, all in one go takes some shifting. We ask for your support with your child with encouraging a good routine at home, please. So getting off to a good start in this way is invaluable. Pupils will also be issued with a locker in order to help with their organisation, which will be placed within the form room. They must make sure they leave their form room so they're packed for those lessons period 1, 2 and 3, and then do the same at break and lunchtime. As mentioned with pupils, in normal times moving around campus, they generally can't return to their form room, but of course colleagues will be understanding in those first few days, weeks and months. Lost locker keys have always proved a perennial problem. Therefore, please buy a combination padlock, please. Thursday tends to be the day where most issues arise, meaning that those keys are left in different blazer pockets, meaning that colleagues like myself are tasked with breaking and entering locks, and we have a series of bolt cutters which are used in emergency situations. Tutors will note down, of course, combination locks where that is forgotten by a pupil for good reason. So please invest in that combination padlock. It seems a minor point, but I can promise you it does come up time and time again. Then we can see within the planner itself, we have a timetable slot for allowing pupils to map that out as an aid memoir as they move around campus, not only in those first days and weeks, but across the whole course of the year as well. And we run that 2-week cycle, as we mentioned. So as you can see here, we have a week A, and then we have a slot here for what preps would be set when, according to the prep planner, which is sent to all pupils and indeed colleagues in those first days in September. Importantly also, there's room for pupils to write down their clubs and societies as part of their co-curricular involvement, in addition to that being available on socks when pupils are at home. This all helps the organisation picture take place as much as possible. As mentioned a moment ago, those third form pupils are often the ones carrying the most bags at the start and at the end of the day. Wonderful to see. The school has its own sports kit bag with individual numbers visible on top to help identify bags. In addition, to ease identification, pupils will be issued with a tag like the one on screen but in a different colour, which is relevant to that year group only, to attach to the bag strap and where pupils write their name on the reverse side and form name in permanent marker. Third form pupils will have a bag store as well to call their own, where they can drop off these larger sports bags especially. Anything individual, of course, like a model of the Globe Theatre, can go to the departmental teacher, English in that respect, or indeed tutors, or indeed anyone in the lower school, including myself, can help keep things in relevant office spaces. We then have the Lanyard, which may be very new for pupils coming into this Solihull Senior School. It's an important item, the ID card. This is for, of course, the community security on school site, accessing buildings where pupils place the badge against a card reader for all buildings across campus, and really important for identification, as well as, of course, getting into buildings quickly and efficiently, that pupils are wearing those from day one to get into those really good habits. We're very conscious this is a lot to take in for you, and crucially a lot for the boys and girls listening now. To help ease that, pupils either will have received in the post or will be receiving very soon via Mrs. Brown and Mrs. Mullen a copy of a guide for pupils made by current pupils, which will help answer some of the questions they may have, in addition to the remote tutor group meetings which are coming up. Please look out for this in the post, as well as a card informing you of house and tutor group, for example. In addition, in this unique situation which we all find ourselves in the absence of those face-to-face induction days, we will be producing the activity booklet around things like Google Doodle competition, which are obviously going to be in these guides as well, to give you as much as a sense of feeling part of the fabric of the third form as soon as possible. So really for mums and dads and guardians, there's a list of third form matters here, which I will now run through. So for illnesses and appointments and absentee requests, we've obviously moved in this last academic year through to a brand spanking new wonderful parent portal, which you will have been invited to sign up on, even if you're not, if your child is not within our prep school setting at the moment. You will have access to some, if not all, of the relevant documents on that parent portal. If you've not logged into that yet, I would encourage you to do so via the admissions letters sent by Mr. Van Alderwegen as Assistant Head of ICT and Strategy. So within that portal, there are absence notification forms which get pinged to relevant people, for example, around registers, as well as tutor being able to authorise that for a day, or if it's more than a few days, it would go to a different member of staff, for example. This isn't to replace email correspondence. That is obviously absolutely still fine to contact the tutor, but indeed, just for especially around registers, we are starting to move more to the notification form as a central point of contact, please. Lost property, it is for every year 7 group, third form group that has gone before this cohort, and indeed after. Lost property is an item, so I would encourage you to label anything and everything you can, whether that's with permanent marker pen, with sewing, or the items that you can iron on to your son's or daughter's clothing would be really helpful. Form tutor is the best person to contact. We obviously have the marshal, who is in charge of all things related to lost property, and that is located within a very convenient place just off the main quad as the lost property office, which is open periodically throughout the week. We do tend to find that friendships and friendship groupings across not only the third form, but especially the lower school and indeed middle school are one of our main issues, where we do a tireless amount of work to help pupils negotiate this as they move through adolescence, and where friendships can evolve over the coming months and indeed years ahead. If you have concerns on these, please do get in touch with the form tutor and or head of year. As I say, we do a lot of work within our form time capacity, as well as WPD and assembly settings around this, either within peer-to-peer or within general acceptance around being as inclusive as possible at all points. Electronic devices, there will be an acceptable use policy to sign up to as well by pupils, as you would expect. Just a note that we do not allow phones to be used by pupils between 8:40, the formal start of the school day, and 4:10, for good reason. We'll be running, I'll mention later on in this presentation, we'll be running a sort of parent session in that first half term of the Christmas term, where there'll be an opportunity to explore a little bit more around the behaviours and the trajectory of a third form pupil. We'll talk more on that specific issue. The parent portal, as mentioned, login details provided. I would encourage you to sign into that if you haven't already, and have a look around at some of the different modules. Some might be open yet, for example, or SOCs might not yet, of course, be populated for all the clubs come September quite yet, but that is an ongoing work in progress as we move through the back end of this academic year into looking ahead. Then, looking then ahead to our website and indeed social media. Here we can see that we've got the school website indeed up of solsh.org.uk, and then our various social media platforms that we have here of Facebook, and then Twitter and Instagram now of @solsh1560. We do post regularly. I think it's really beneficial for our parent community, especially during this last year, to stay as connected as possible to school with the various initiatives, clubs, activities, pupil successes that we like to celebrate through our social media channels as well as on the website. Moving forward then to that portal, here is a screenshot of it if you haven't had a chance to look at one yet. This is done as a parent view. As you can see here, we've got the COVID testing, for example, and then we've got everything around Evolve, which is our software program for trips and payments. We have that electronic form around absence, timetable. Academic obviously won't populate anything yet for senior school pupils, but will do in due course, of course. Parents' evening modules, SOCs, co-curricular, school videos via YouTube, access to our various social media platforms via one hub, which hopefully is going to make things much easier, as well as, of course, school post and emails, which will come to you in due course. And of course, the ability, like most websites now, to be able to subscribe or indeed unsubscribe from various notifications. If you're having any issues with that, please may I encourage you to use the email address help@solsh.org.uk. Our dedicated IT help desk team will be able to help you with anything from logging in to any other issues you may have navigating that portal system. So then, moving forward to some key dates. Moving forward, normally in our summer term, we'd have our summer art and photography exhibition, but alas, not again this year for the second year in a row. As mentioned in the letters or the emails sent out via Mrs. Mullen, we have the form and house tutor meet and greets from the week commencing the 28th of June, where invitations will be sent to email addresses by the end of this week, that is by Friday the 25th of June. So please do look out for those. We'll just go on to that in a little bit more detail in a moment. Then we've got the form meeting itself, so all of the form, the whole form, with the tutor on Thursday the 8th of July at 4:30, if your son or daughter is able to attend as a chance to meet as a whole cohort. Then moving forward, we've got the induction day, Friday the 3rd of September in full school uniform, senior school uniform for the first time. This is an opportunity before the rest of pupils join on the Monday for a normal start of term, let's say those in Shells, for example. This is an opportunity for the third form, and of course an important one with not being able to be on campus at the moment, to be able to spend some time with a campus orientation where there are no other members of the school community on site in the same way as normal times. Then obviously we've got the start of term fully on Monday the 6th. And then we have some tutor meetings in October, in that first half term from September to October. More to follow on that, as we're obviously very keen to ensure that our parental community have access to being able to come on site, given the difficult year that we have all faced. Just a word on trips in the lower school. We run a variety of trips. Obviously that has been curtailed, but hopefully that will get back to normal as soon as possible. and indeed certainly will do across the trajectory of lower school and indeed further middle school and sixth form. We run languages trips, for example. The third form, as you can see here in a picture in the bottom right, have been to Spain, for example, for an immersive language trip. There are trips to Germany and France in the Shells and Force, respectively. There have been ski trips within Europe as well in the Easter term, Easter holidays. There's theatre day trips, there's sports tours, and indeed so much more. Of course, one of the big main trips, and this is actually a photo taken only 2 days ago from the filming or recording of this, of our current third form pupils who are at Woodlands Adventure, again a day of outward bound activity to help the form group and indeed year group bond as much as possible. That hasn't been possible in this academic year in September for obvious reasons, but we're really delighted we managed to get that into the agenda before this third form move into being shell form. So that's already booked for all incoming third form. That will be across the 13th and indeed 14th of September 2021, which is of course in those first couple of weeks to really help those bonds formulate away from school campus as much as possible. So it's normally at this point that I would hand over to the bursar in person in the Busher Hall to make a mention of a few key messages. Again, obviously that sadly isn't possible, but Mr. Bates' email address, Mr. Richard Bates' email address is here, as we can see on screen. And again, around transport, bus requests have gone out. However, if there's any queries on that, please do contact Mrs. Gemma Deary, who's our Operations and Facilities Manager at dearyg@solch.org.uk. Please do email on that, even if there's any queries at all around Edgbaston Bus or Sutton Bus or one of the various minibuses that we run, for example, from Claverden. Please do get in touch with any queries on that. On food, all food allergies should be made aware to our external catering team at Solihull via the email at catering@solch.org.uk, who of course work closely with the medical team, the nurses at school, and indeed the pastoral team, myself, head of year, and tutors. The refectory also houses the snack bar during mid-morning break. And finances, obviously lunches are included in the fees themselves. Any issue on finances or financial matters, please do get in contact with the bursar in the first instance, please. On the subject of food and nutrition, we opened our doors to a remodelled and contemporary refectory space in November 2019 now. Our external caterers, Thomas Franks, serve fresh produce and hot meals. An extensive salad bar and sandwich range will be back on the menu, fingers crossed, come September, when menus are also posted online weekly. So, the journey starts here. Solihull will be the place where you, listening as pupils, or indeed your child, will, in 7 years' time, have just come to the end of their journey through the senior school. You may be struggling to comprehend that you, as a pupil, or indeed your son or daughter, will be starting senior school life soon, and the next few years will also pass very quickly. And before you know it, you will all be sat, parents and pupils alike, at a leaver service in the school chapel. Here are a few pictures from some shell form pupils on a Snowdonia school week, that week timetabled for outdoor education learning. I will pass on pronouncing the famous, infamous, longest named train station in Wales. So, a leaver service might typically look like that. And indeed, I can assure you all that there are a few tears, and indeed more, shed at that leaver service. Not only by the pupils, might I add. Parents, bring your hankies in 7 years' time to celebrate the end of that secondary school educational journey. I wonder and look forward to seeing what the photos from the leavers of 2028 will look like and the memories you all share. It may seem a million miles away, but I promise you it will pass in the blink of an eye. So, moving then forward, just to finish around these meet and greet sessions. These are the same days as previously written to parents by Mrs. Brown. Each day from 4:30, Mr. Gledhill, myself, Mrs. Brown and or Miss Campbell will do a Teams live event for pupils to dial in, so you can see us in person and we can talk to you live as the form groups per day. Then we'll then disband, and then from 4:45 the form house shall meet and greet on Teams, and please look out for those invites via the email we have on file. So for Featherstone, from 4:45 each day. From Yago, 5 o'clock. Pole, 5:15. Shenstone, 5:30. And Windsor, 5:45. So what to think about for those form and house small group meetings? Well, just as an icebreaker activity, we'd like you to have a think about 3 truths and 1 made up. So for example, 3 things that even your best friends might not necessarily know about something you do or something in your world. And then one extra thing which is made up. So 4 things in total. 1 thing that's made up. So amongst those, the trick is to disguise what is that thing that's made up, and other people then have to guess which one is the truth, which 3 are the truths and which 1 is the made up thing. So you wouldn't tell them, but the people in the room, the small group, including your tutors, will have to guess what is the made up thing about you. Then 2 things you like about school, your current school at the moment. That could be 1 thing in class and 1 thing outside of the classroom. For example, a club you do. Then the pyramid working down, 1 thing you like to do outside of school. Outside of school, that could be anything from riding your bike to taking part in a sports club or a musical group outside of school. And then any questions you have that the 3rd form tutors will be able to field about the 3rd form. Any questions that you have. And I promise, there is no question which you think is going to be silly. That is not possible. All questions are going to be valid questions, I'm sure. So that brings this presentation to an end. There will be further detail to come on the Thursday, the 8th of July, and what that looks like. But please, in the interim, do keep an eye out for those emails to the various remote events next week. It's obviously not our plan A in any way, shape or form. It is a formulated and well thought out before the portcullis came down around the restrictions now in place, meaning we can't do in-person transition events as we would have liked to have done this side of the summer holidays. But we're sure these are going to go as well as they possibly can. So do have a think about those things on screen to make those meetings go as smoothly and as productively as possible before we look ahead to more on the 8th of July. Thank you very much, parents and pupils, for your time.